NCERT Social Science Class 6 Chapter 1 What, Where, How and When. Can we get into the chapter? What can we know about the past? Who had lived in the past? What the people did in the past? This is what we have to know. What food they ate, what clothes they wear, and what shelter, where did they live? What was the shelter they had? So these are the things we have to know. Now we have to know what the people did in the past. How did they live their life? Some were hunters, that is, people who go to the forest and hunt the animals. Some were herders, that is, people who tame the cows, sheep, and goats and take them from pasturous place, feed them up there. Those are called as herders. Few were farmers, that is, people who settled down near the river banks where they grew their crops and they had a farm. Some people were rulers who were ruling kings. Some were merchants. Merchants are people who sell and buy things. So those are called as merchants. Few were priests. Priests are nothing but the religious people who are going to guide the people. Then few were craftsmen, that is, people who did different toys, different tools, different woodworks, and all those things. Few people were artists, and few were musicians who were singing songs and they were playing musical instruments. Last but not the least, few were even scientists in olden days. How else we can know about our past? From where do we know about our past? Sometimes from the games which the children played in the olden days, some of the stories they heard, the plays that they saw, that is the drama that they saw, and even the songs they sung. All these put together we were able to find out the past. Now we have to know where did people live. For example, look at the map here and see the red circle around Narmada River. About several hundred thousand years ago, people lived around the Narmada River bank. And these people were mostly gatherers. Now, who are gatherers? Gatherers are nothing but people who go in search of fruits and roots from different plants and trees in the forest. They even hunted animals from the forest and led their life. Where did people live? We saw the Narmada River. Now, see the map on the northeast, you find Sulaiman and Kirtar Hills. Here, 8,000 years ago, people were living around these places and they even grew crops like wheat and barley. Few people in that time were rearers of animals, that is, they reared sheep, goat, and cattle and lived in villages also. Can you see to the northeast Garo Hills where people lived and did agriculture at that time? Vindhyas in the central India is a place where rice was cultivated in those days. Now, trace the bank of the river Indus and its tributaries. About 4,700 years ago, we could find the cities being developed and flourished at the bank. Now, there's another river called Ganga and its tributary. About 2,500 years ago, people created cities around this Ganga river and its tributary, even near the sea coast. There's an important tributary of Ganga, which is Sun. Now, here, this place, the bank of the tributary Sun, is the place where Magadha Empire flourished. Now it is the state of Bihar. Some people travel from one part of the subcontinent to the other. Now, what is the subcontinent? India and the countries around India were together called as subcontinent. People traveled by crossing Himalayas, hills, seas, and river. But while crossing, it made the travel very dangerous. Okay, men and women traveled from place to place for living, and they had to face the natural calamity like drought and flood. So they moved from one place to the other place for living sake, to find food. Sometimes people marched in armies to conquer another country. Sometimes merchants, that is people who sell and buy goods, travel on large caravans, carry the trade items. Even in ships, they were carrying valuable goods from one place to another. Now, who was the other person, people who were traveling? Those are the religious teachers. Now, these religious teachers travel from village to village, town to town, giving their teaching instructions to the people. Some people traveled for adventure's sake, like the hunters. Some traveled for discovering new places. Now, with all this, sharing of ideas between people happened, and with this, the history of the past was known. How did we get a name for our country? How many names do we have for our country? We have two names. One is Bharat, the other one is India. From where did we get the origin of the name India? It's from the Indus River, and which is in Sanskrit called as the Sindhu. Now, two places in the world map is of great importance. One is Greece and the other one is Iran. The Iranians and the Greeks, about 2500 years ago, they were familiar with Indus, and they called it as Hindos or Indos. The land to the east of Indus is called as India. Now, group of people who live to the northwest are mentioned as Bharat. Bharata. This was mentioned in the Rig Veda, which is the earliest composition in the Sanskrit. Now, 3500 years ago, people called the place where these people lived as Bharat. Finding about the past. How do we know about the past? Sometimes we read books, sometimes we read the written material. These are called as manuscript. Now, what is the meaning of manuscript? Manu in Latin meaning hand. So, whatever is written in hand is called as manuscript. Now, this olden day manuscript was written in palm leaves. They were prepared from these palm leaves were written using the bark of a tree called birch, which usually grew in Himalaya. Now, these manuscript, several years back, they were there, but few were eaten up and destroyed by insects. Some are still survived the past. Now, a lot of palm leaves manuscripts were put together and tied together in the form of a book. These book dealt with different religions, how people believed them, what are the practices that they followed in that religion, who are the kings who lived in that place, the medicine that they had in those times, the science that they learnt in those times, the different epics, poem, and even the plays were also written in these manuscript. Most of the manuscript were in Sanskrit. Some were in a language called Prakrit, the local language. That is the people in the particular area who were talking, and there were even manuscripts in Tamil. How else we can find about the past? Manuscripts in one form. The other one is inscription. Inscription is nothing but the letters written on or inscribed on a stone or a metal. Most of the kings and queens who wanted to impose their rules write their inscription on stones and metal, and then put it in a common place where people can read them. One such oldest inscription was found in Kandahar in Afghanistan, which was written by King Ashoka. The top part of that inscription was in Greek and the bottom part was in Aramaic. Now, the people, archaeologists, they evacuate a place and find out the things which are available to describe who are living there, to find out who are the people who are living there, what they did, what they eat, how was their civilization, and all these things. So, what did they pick up and find? They found stone, bricks, paintings, and sculptures. They evacuated tools, toys, weapon, pots, pans, ornaments, and coin. The silver coin 2500 years ago is shown. It is completely different from the coin which we are using. About 4700 years ago, an old pot was discovered, and this pot was made out of stone. There were even pots made out of bones, baked clay, or metal. We have to know about the letters and dates used also. Before Christ, that is the period before Christ was born, that is called as BC. AD means Anno Domino, that is in Latin meaning year of the Lord Christ. And C is used instead of AD in some places, and BCE is used instead of BC. CE means common era, and sometimes we use BP also, which is before the present, that is the dates before the current time, you call it as BP. Apart from inscriptions, which are written in script and languages, even figures were used in inscription. Now, how did we decode those things? Decipherment is the process that was used. There was a famous inscription which was 5000 years old in the town of Rosetta in Egypt. Now, this inscription had Greek and Egyptian languages. Now, scholars read the Greek letters, but the figures were found out by using the different letter attached or matched with the figures. These things were written inside a frame, small frame called cartouche. Now, how do they decipher these frames? Now, for example, lion was linked with the letter L. So, after deciphering it, they use the same method for deciphering the other inscription which was found. Class 6, Chapter 1, What, Where, How, and When. This chapter was explained. Hope you understood it. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll meet in the next chapter.